South Dallas raised me. EB Comstock and Skyline High School educated me, and these streets made me. But it hasn't been easy for my community. From healthcare outcomes to educational attainment to affordable housing, so many areas in Dallas rank dead last. Corporations and politicians may be okay with this status quo, but South Dallas deserves better. I'm Jessica Mason, candidate for Congress in TX-30, and we can stop being last in so many things by trying a few firsts. I was the first person in my family to graduate college, the first person to get a master's degree, and I'll be the first Black woman veteran to ever serve in Congress. And I will always put the needs of the Black, brown, and immigrant communities of this district first, because this has always been home. I grew up a proud daughter of a Teamster truck driver and an administrative assistant, but we couldn't afford to keep the lights on. When I was 7 years old, my mother couldn't afford my $20 asthma treatment, so my lung collapsed, and I spent months in the hospital. After high school, I enrolled in college in hopes of lifting my family out of poverty, but I ended up having to drop out because I couldn't afford to stay in. So I enlisted in the Navy to serve my country and to get my college degree. As a medic in the Navy, I counseled service members ailing with the mental tolls of war, substance abuse, sexual harassment, and assault. When I finished my service to our country, I returned to Dallas to begin serving my community and found things even worse than when I left. So I got to work, fighting for affordable housing and better access to food and health services. Our community is in pain, and that won't change if we keep sending people to Congress who are detached from our stories of struggle. And I won't stop fighting until South Dallas becomes the first in healthcare access, the first in affordable housing, and the first in food security. Because the community that gave me so many of my firsts deserves some of its own. I'm not just another politician or political operative. I'm a daughter of Dallas who has lived through the challenges our community faces and is running to bring real change, to bring a new deal to the community I grew up in and the people I love. South Dallas raised me. Washington will never change me.
Good evening, Jessica. What an inspiring video. I love how you say South Dallas raised you and Washington won't change you. How are you feeling?
I am excited. I'm excited. It's been a long road, and anyone who knows, what it's like to run, as a low-income candidate, you have to work 3 times harder than all of your opponents. But we were able to do a lot of good work. We raised a good amount of money. We, have been talking to so many people in our community, and that sense of, finally they can see someone that wants to fight for a change and someone that's from the community. That's to me the most rewarding part of all of this. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling uplifted, and I'm ready to bring this thing on home March 1st.
All right. Well, Election Day is just a few days away, and if elected, you would be the first Black female veteran in Congress.
Yes.
And it's wonderful that we can still make history. And, Texas is notorious for a lower voter turnout, especially in the midterm elections. How are you feeling about turnout, and what do you feel out in the field?
So this district specifically has one of the lowest voter turnouts in the state of Texas. And that's because we have not been doing the work as far as going out and engaging voters, and not just the voters who always turn out for election, but the voters in the underserved communities that are historically just left behind. A lot of the times, as a party, it's just, second nature for us to go, to the people who we know are going to turn out. But I think with, Beto running for governor, we have to do a lot more in going to people in the underserved communities so that we can have enough votes to, eventually have Beto in office or any other Democrat that wants to run statewide.
Right.
In this district right now, I want to say that the voting percentage is about 3%, which is much lower than it was the same time a couple years before. I think it was 7% by this time. So
Okay.
I am a bit worried about our ability as a party to connect with our voters. as I'm knocking on doors and I'm telling people about this election, a lot of people either they don't know, or two, they don't feel excited enough to
Mm-hmm.
come out because they did so much work for, to get Biden, elected into office, and they're not seeing a lot of the fruits that came from that labor. So some people are being affected by apathy.
Are you having to change your message to motivate them? Because one of the problems we've had in Texas is apathetic voters, and then also with the added voter suppression that's on top of it, you have other states where it's totally mail-in ballots. You can register same day, you can vote, and Texas doesn't have any of those technological advances. So have you had to change your message to motivate people to come out and vote?
I wouldn't say that I've had to, well, change my message, because my message has always been very progressive, very, this is the New Deal is really like one of the slogans for my campaign, meaning that we want to move forward. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what a lot of people are looking for. The issue that we've been having, though, is when you have, a super PAC being involved in this race, spending millions and millions and millions of dollars, you have to combat that with, you know, my messaging. Like we raised, $280,000, which doesn't give you as much, I would say, access to voters, or it doesn't give you the ability to reach as many voters as it would if you raised, you know, $2 million, or if you had a super PAC come in for you. So I
Right.
think that the people who I have connected with are excited and ready to come out. It's just, the people in the district that, I haven't been able to, send a mailer to, or who, haven't seen any of my TV ads, and, I'm knocking on their door for the first time. And once I introduce them to me, and, tell them I am, I want universal health care, I want, the child tax credit to be permanent, things like that, they get excited and they're like, okay, you know what? I want to go vote for this girl.
What do you think is one of the most important things that you're hearing from constituents that they want?
A lot of the constituents will tell you what they don't want.
Okay.
And that is the same. They always say,
Mhm.
we don't want the same. We don't want a repeat of what we've had before. We want someone that's going to go into Congress and be able to stand up to the Republicans, stand up against special interests, and do what they need to do to get this much needed legislation passed. Like a lot of the provisions that we saw in the BBB that just didn't make it out.
Right. Right. There's so much that was it's been watered down from that bill that, when it finally gets done, it's not going to look like the original of what we needed. Are you hearing a lot about the rejection of mail-in ballots from seniors that you talk with?
I'm not sure that they are 100% aware. All of the seniors that I've talked to, they did, express to me that they, used mail-in ballot. Then, I would let them know, hey, you might want to check on that, because
Mhm.
I want to say 1/3 of every ballot cast in Dallas County was thrown out. So I, tell them about that, and then, tell them to, contact someone at elections, and see if they can, find another way to cast their vote.
Okay. And that is another way that the Texas GOP has sought to suppress the power of the vote of our seniors and those who are disabled, those who won't be in the county to vote on election day or doing early voting. And it's another reason why we need good progressives in office, so that we can have good positive change to happen. You talk a lot about your policies that we saw in your video. What is the policy that you want to be known for when you go to Congress?
I have to say, anything that has to do with housing. Affordable housing is a really big issue here in Dallas, as I'm sure it is in, urban metroplexes across the country. There was just an article released, I want to say last week, where they were saying that, rents in this area have skyrocketed. Like
Yeah.
a rent for like a one-bedroom apartment here is like $1,700, and the
Wow.
wages just aren't keeping up enough for people to be able to, pay for just, a one-bedroom apartment. And then a lot of people are locked out of, the housing market, not being able to, afford a mortgage or get a loan to buy a house, because you have people, throwing 300, $500,000 cash down on a home, and
Mhm.
that's making a lot of, housing resources very scarce for, middle class, working class folks.
All right. And we need a living wage so that we can afford to take care of our families and have housing.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other things that you are talking about? Housing, for sure. I know you talked about Medicare for all. What's one of your big three?
The other, it's going to have to be, economic justice in the way of, better jobs, better pay, equal pay for women, equal pay, for people of color, and also just bringing better high quality jobs to the district. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, we have a lot of people working, for Amazon, DoorDash, Uber Eats, people with, college degrees, people with master's degrees who cannot find, a decent job, a job paying at
Mm-hmm.
least, $60,000 a year, which I would argue is really not enough in today's time. But I
Right.
think that we need better jobs here, and no other candidate or anybody is really talking about these issues.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to know that you are, and I'm really glad. The final days of a not the final days of a campaign, but the final days of a candidate with the campaign. What has surprised you, if anything?
Oh, that's a really good question. That's a really good question because I feel like this entire campaign has been, a bundle of surprises.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to say the thing that probably surprised me the most is the support that I have received with the messaging that I have. A lot of people say that you can't, raise money or win when you're a progressive, especially in Texas. But what I
Yes.
found is that when you're talking to people and you're, telling them about the policy, they're like, this isn't something radical. This is, normal. This is what we should be shooting for. And, they're like, you have my vote. Or, the fact that I was able to raise $280,000 without having any type of institutional support, coming from
Mm-hmm.
a poor family and being able to, raise that amount of money for South Dallas. It's never been done
Mm-hmm.
before. So I think that those are probably the most surprising things that have come out of this campaign for me.
Well, you have a very impressive story of survival and coming through and having that endurance that is needed to go through, and especially having a background as a veteran, and with the current uh, things going on around the world. I know you made sent out a release concerning what's going on. You want to just touch on that for a moment?
Yes, first, I want to, send, good energy, love, and prayers to Ukraine.
Mhm.
I was very disappointed and, shocked by, Russia's actions and the fact that they are invading a sovereign, country. So it's very sad to see what's going on. One of the biggest things that I did want to press upon people was that war is just really not the way to go right now. And of course, we wanted to pursue diplomacy at every single step that we can, even though we know that we may be dealing with someone who doesn't you know really want to negotiate with us. I think that I was very clear on my stance on economic sanctions, that I did not want the United States to impose, broad-based economic sanctions on Russia, because that would affect a lot of the, poor people. It makes inequality worse, and a lot of the people
Mhm.
who don't want to even be involved in this war, as we saw, they were, protesting in the streets yesterday, that we want these sanctions to be targeted and for it to affect the oligarchs and Putin himself. Because they are the people behind this entire situation, and we don't want mass suffering among the Ukrainian people, and also the Russian people who don't want to even be involved in this conflict.
Right, right. Well, thank you for taking a stand and being able to speak about it, especially with the background as of a veteran. You have a different um, viewpoint and a different lens that you can see things through, and we lean upon that so that we can learn as well. Well, how can viewers support you?
Well, as you mentioned before, we are, at the very end of this campaign. And although we're at the very end of the campaign, this is when you have to put in the most work. It
Mhm.
is time for us to, we've been aggressively knocking doors, but we have to really kick it up a notch. And what we could really use is, people who want to do phone banks for us. That would be great. You can do that from the comfort of your home. We need to reach more voters. As we mentioned before, turnout is really low. So we need to, do as much as we can to let people know that there's an election going on right now.
Right.
We do canvases every weekend. We will have canvass Saturday, Sunday, and Monday during election day to, pull people to the polls. So if you want to volunteer, please go to my website, jessicamason4congress.com, and then you can sign up there, or you could just shoot us an email at jessicamason4congress.com. Jessica at jessicamason4congress.com. Another
Okay.
thing that you could do is, shoot a text to your friends. If y'all are in Texas or Texas 30, you know, grab a friend and tell them, hey, we're going to the polls today. Tell your mom, tell your aunt, tell your dad, whether it's my race or whether it's another race. We need widespread turnout in Texas altogether. We do have Beto running at the top of the ticket. We really need to get rid of Abbott also. So, pull people to the polls and let them know that your vote is your voice.
Right. And we just found from Sheila McCormick's race in Florida that she won by 5 votes. And those 5 votes, she is now a sitting congresswoman in Florida. So every vote counts. We need everyone to come out. 3% is really low. And we need every vote to get out to vote for Jessica Mason so that we have a progressive champion that's in the U.S. House to represent Texas. I am a Texan, and we need some help here in Texas with the folks that we have representing us. So, Jessica, I know you're sitting out at the polling place and it's about to
I am.
close. 7 o'clock. I thank you for taking the time to just speak with us about your campaign, and we're looking forward to your victory on Tuesday. Where are you going to be on Tuesday?
I'm going to be everywhere on Tuesday.
Okay.
I'll be in DeSoto, Cedar Hill, Duncanville. I'll be in South Dallas. I'll be at every single polling place throughout the day.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll be posting, online, letting people know where I'll be. So if they want to, come up and vote, or just talk about some issues, take some pictures, they'll know where I'm at.
All right. So if you're in one of those cities, you can go vote for Jessica Mason. She is running to represent you in Texas 30. And Jessica, we'll see you on Tuesday, March 1st for the election day in Texas. Texas is the beginning of the progressive wins in 2022 across this country. So we so look forward to being able to say victory is Jessica Mason. So have a great evening, Jessica. Thank you so much for running to represent us.
Thank y'all.
All
Thank
right.
y'all so much. Take care.